We should be good. There we go. Okay. Hello, everybody. This is the stream for this week. We're going to be talking about gambling and God. Kind of just going through some things I've learned over time in response to stuff going on in the server. As this discussion and topic has come up. So we're just going to jump right in. It might not be a long one, just kind of going to give a few of my thoughts, a few scriptures to think about, and then hopefully that will, answer most of the big questions. But yeah, I'm going to pray first, and then we'll get into it. Dear Lord, I am thankful for any time we get to think and discuss your word and who you are together. I pray tonight that just some wisdom is exchanged. I mean, this is a matter of wisdom, and it can be a little bit tricky, and it can be a little harder than just reading the law or exegeting a scripture to actually kind of come to the best answer here. So I pray that wisdom is used, and that for the people who listen who really need to hear about this topic, that you use me to bless them, as you've also taught me many lessons in this area, Lord. And I just pray that your will is done. Amen. All right. So, of course, anyone in the chat, if you have anything to say, you want to unmute and talk, you can just type in general, and then I'll see it. And general is fine, and I'll see it, and then you can hopefully talk. So that will be the way it goes. I want you guys, or you can DM me if you have questions or whatever. I want you guys to be like interacting, especially if this is something that you kind of struggle with a little bit. Unfortunately, the main people in question did not come to this study, even though they're the ones who were like, yeah, let's talk about it. And then they were arguing about it all day in the server, like usually happens. So, but it is what it is. Hopefully they'll catch the stream. Hey guys, hopefully this is useful for you. So why am I even talking about this? I would say because I want to be able to share some of my own experience, so I can give kind of a background as to why I should be able to, make some comments regarding wisdom on this. Compared to the majority of people over the course of life, I have spent above average amount of time and money playing poker. I don't want to necessarily say gambling, because some people lose a lot over the course of a long period of time. But I have, in the short period of time, in the short term, I have spent a lot of time playing poker, and I've spent a lot of money playing poker. I started back in November of this past year, so 2024, and it just stuff happened. I met some people. They invited me over for a game. The game was super low stakes back in that day. It was like $20, and it just felt fun. It was like, oh, nice, a little poker group. This would be fun to do once in a while during my time at school, which is totally how it started, but not how it ended. And so that was something that I've, of course, immediately became hooked on it, because poker is super fun. I mean, honestly, until it becomes stressful, it's a pretty fun game. It's fun to kind of outthink people. It's fun to kind of have that mix of skill and luck. It's almost like, as far as the mix of skill and luck, it kind of feels like the same balance of like playing Mario Party, where you do feel like you have some control and you can actually make some good progress if you're locked in. But then sometimes you can just get screwed. And I fell in love with the game, and then it became something I did basically every time I could. And I'll be honest, from November to say February, it slowly took over my life more and more. What I mean is that I had, particular things I wanted to do, schedules and friends to hang out with, and all these things I could be doing. But anytime a poker game would come up, that would take priority. And so I went from playing like once a week to like playing twice and 3 and 4 times. And then I would play for 4, 5, 6 hours. I had many days where I was up to 4 a.m. and I started at 10 or 8 p.m. or even, and a couple times I was up to like 6, just playing poker all night. Just winning, losing money, buying back in, whatever, right? With other people who were doing the same thing. So I have spent time in the trenches with this game. I've studied this game. I've played online all the time for like 6 months of the first 6 months of this year. I was online playing this game all the time, trying to grind thousands of hands so that I could win money and get out on top. And I would watch videos, and I would study ranges, and I would practice memorization on the hands I shouldn't play, so that I could try to get the edge and have consistent winning. So I've put the time in. I probably have put over 1,000 hours into poker. That would make sense, because I would play in class. I swear to God, I'd play in class. If class was a little boring for a second, I would just go into a game. I will say, for some reason, I always lost a lot of money in class, but maybe I wasn't focused enough. Who knows? But I would just, this would be, especially for a few months, it was, the majority of my thinking. And it slowly took over. Like I said, started low stakes, but then the guys wanted to play higher stakes. We did a $50 game night, and we're like, oh, that was fun. And then people were like, let's do 50 again. And then all of a sudden we got we bought a nice table, and we found new people that are willing to spend more. And then we went to 100 and 200 and 500. And the games got big. They got big enough where I was starting to stress out. I had a good run for a while where I was winning a lot of games. I was coming out on top, and I was feeling so good. Oh, this stuff's easy. This is extra income. I was $500 up or something. I was having an amazing run, and then it just turned. And I didn't get worse. It's just, the game is, there is skill involved in poker, but it's also a lot of luck. And I just got, just creamed. Just absolutely smashed with bad luck. It drained me of a lot of money. And then it was getting stressful because those games were now 1-2 blinds. They were $200 games. People buying in for 300, 400, 500. I don't know where these people were coming from, but the group that started of $20 changed pretty quickly. And I was, especially for a while, since when we first started going to higher stakes, I was actually one of the guys who was always up. I was always doing well because the little bit of studying I had done, and I guess some of the luck that happened to run out, was all going great. And the Lord let me fall right into that. And then eventually I started getting absolutely killed out there. But, so I've done it. I've played, and then I took a break for a month after February because I was 500 up, and I went to $500 to $900 down. It was somewhere in that range, and I was like, I need to take a break. I'm just a college kid. I can't be wasting all this money. And I took a break for a month, and then I slowly got back in. I will say, probably one of the things I'm least proud of is that there was one game or one or two games that I played probably early April where I actually went into debt to one of my friends to play. I was like, I'll pay you back in a few months. So I just want to get in on a game. And that, I'm definitely not proud of that, but that was where I was at. But if I'm honest, where I was at in April is I was really addicted to this game. And I was going to even go into stupid debt to other people and I'm lucky that he was a nice dude to play this game. And then of course I lost that money too. But that's kind of where it was. At April, things started to change a little bit, where the stakes dropped a little bit, and I just happened to have just enough money to keep playing. And I found I was starting to play with some other people that had recently come on the scene that weren't as good, so I was winning a little more again. And then I started playing online, and this is where it got I would say worse for a couple months between April and June, and then a little bit after, but eventually it changed. But this is when I was online every day, some days for hours. Sometimes I'd be playing while driving in the car, while sitting in class, while during times of being in the middle of other things with other people, or literally I would skip things. I wanted to go to the gym and do this and do that and see these people, and I would skip it because I would just start playing a game online and be like, I'm locking in on this. I'm going to make some money. And I would just skip things. I would literally skip my life. I would put my life aside so I could maybe make money online. And then if I lost money on the days where I skipped things, or if I kind of gambled instead of did something productive, the depression and the feeling of regret was, dude, I've never felt anything like that. Never felt anything like that. It was so strong, because not only are you mad that you lost, and of course it's heightened by your greed and your laziness that you lost the money, but now you can also get the shame and the guilt of holy crap, I literally skipped out on all these other things in my life, and I could have been doing those, and I could have been, even if it was only vaguely productive, I could have been doing that. Instead, I literally put them aside, played poker, lost money, and now I feel like garbage. So I was getting to those points. It was pretty bad. And through the whole thing, I was justifying it. I was justifying. I was saying to myself, well, I mean, poker is a game and it requires some skill. So it's not like playing slots. That was one of my arguments. It's different. So it requires skill. So it's okay. And then I said, well, as long as I have a limit, like a bottom limit of how much money I can spend, meaning like, I'll stop if I hit that much loss. And I actually talked to people about that to establish that limit. Then it's okay because, I have my limit. I'm not going to go past it, and it's a reasonable number, so I'm free within that limit. Or like, as long as I don't let it get in the way of too many other things, then it's okay too, because I'm like, it's just become a little hobby in my life, and it's okay. Basically, all these different justifications, and we'll go through all those. And obviously, if they apply to poker, if we can unjustify those poker justifications, then of course they would apply all the more to anything that doesn't require any skill, like blackjack or craps or roulette or slots, which are, even when I was playing poker, I was of the opinion that it was a sin to put $1 in a slot machine, and I still believe that. In a sense, I will talk about some of the gray areas there, but all these different things, this was my experience, and I want to share that so that if someone were to listen to this and say to themselves, dude, I don't want to listen to a Christian guy talk to me about gambling because it's like, what does he know? He's just a scripture dude. He doesn't know about this stuff or whatever. Or the assumption might be made that I'm naive to this area of life because because the people listening don't know how I've interacted with this area of life. I want to just be clear that it has hit me hard in my life more than your average person most of the time, because most people I know, even the people who aren't believers, don't gamble that much. I don't really know, like some people will do like a sports betting with their friends, or some people will go to the casino once a year or something, but to be involved in like a year's worth of like, I was grinding poker. Right, I wanted it to be a side hobby where I made a living. Right, I was literally playing online and losing and winning a bunch of money by the day. I was making bets like in the pre-flop, which means just one of the betting rounds of a poker hand. I was making bets that were more than I earn in a week. Under some situations, well, maybe not that much, but more than I earn in a day for sure. And I've shoved all in $500 before. This is like, I've been there, I've done it, and I've also justified it. And I want anyone to listen to know that so that they might hear what I have to say. Right. So that's all that. Of course, I don't live that way anymore. Well, good thing you're here, Gabe, because it gets silly. I don't do that anymore. I'll tell you one brief story about really what was kind of the turning point for me, and then we'll then address all your comments and questions. The Lord had been working on me for a while throughout the summer, this past summer on this. So poker had been slowly dropping away. Some of it just logically, because I just had to do other things. I had work to do now, and I had this and that to do, and there were just things in the way, and just that occupied my time, right? So it started fading away a little bit, and he would just kind of work on me. He would continue to like reinforce to me that this was a waste of my time, and because it wasn't the losing money that kind of finally convinced me. It was the loss of time, because if I go from May or April to like August, it's just funny to me how it worked out. Basically, with all the studying and playing and hours and thousands of hours put in and the money spent and all that stuff to try to like make some money or just do something with this game, from like those 4 months, by the end of it, I was like basically even. I basically would win a bunch of money and lose it all, and then win a bunch of money and lose it all, and I basically came out even. I obviously came out overall down because I lost a bunch in like February as well. But what I mean to say is like it finally hit me at a certain point late in the summer. Like, holy crap, I've put literally hundreds and hundreds of hours into this, and I'm at plus $1 in essence right now after all of this. And what am I doing? And of course, in the long runs from past November, I'm down. I'll be honest, I'm down over, I'm down a couple thousand, I'd say. I'll just be straight up about it. Some might be like, yeah, that's not too bad. Well, and in the grand scheme of things, it isn't. If your life turns out well, but your life won't turn out well if you just spend all your time gambling. But for some people, that's crazy. For some people in my life, I told them, oh, I'm down like 1,500, and they're like, what? Because like for some people, they can't even grasp that. But this is all that happened. All this happened. I remember though, I was in LA for a wedding, and I had just decided one of the nights I'm in LA. I'm going to a casino, and I remember I had like just decided I was going. I was out with my friends. We had dinner, and they were like, "Oh, we're gonna head back. Do you want to come back and hang or whatever?" I was like, "No, I got something else to do." I decided I was gonna go gamble. So, I remember this night was crazy. I first of all called my parents, because they always got mad at me for doing this. So I had to argue with them for a while, but I called them just because I think just for other reasons, I forget. But so I talked to them, and that was an intense conversation. It got me stressed out already because they did not approve of any of it. And then I remember everything's far in LA. I think this casino was like an hour by bus, or an hour, or an Uber was so expensive, but you could also like bike. So remember, I was just kind of like upset from the phone call, so I just was biking. And so now I'm like biking through like dozens of miles of LA, and like the areas were low-key dangerous, but I was like, nah, I'm gonna gamble. It was like midnight. I didn't get to the casino till like 1:30. And I had the bike, and then the bike ran out because like you had to park it, and they didn't have spots like within like I think 20 minutes of the casino. They didn't have any bike park spots because I was using like a city bike. So eventually I biked past where the last place was to park it, and I had to bike back up, park it, and get an Uber and pay for the Uber to go the rest of the way to get to the casino. It's like past 1:00 at this point, but I was just determined. I was like, I'm going to gamble tonight. I'm going to go in and play poker. I'm going to try to win a bunch of money. Of course I go in, and I remember that day I had played online in the morning with like friends from college, and I had won like $300. So I was like, oh, what a great day. Maybe we'll make the rest of it back up, and I'd get back to even. I was actually feeling really excited. That's why I was like determined. But Gabe, you don't even make that much money in a year, bro. I don't want to hear it. And so I remember I was there, and I was just feeling good, and I bought in somewhere I think I bought in for like $300 at a table, play some 2-5. That's my first time playing 2-5. And it was going well. I remember like second hand, I like hit trip threes, and I won like $50, and I was like, oh, this is gonna be a great night. But like just eventually I sat there for like 2 hours, and my money was just getting drained because I was just getting bad hands. And I was playing against players who were not good at all, but I just kept running so bad. And I remember eventually I lost that on an all-in where the guy like won with 8-3 or something. And I was really pissed off. And so I bought in again, and then I bought in again somewhere. I lost a lot of money that night. I think total I lost like 400 that night, 450, which might be news to some, but like it was a rough night. But I remember I got cooked like 3 times in very unlikely situations. Like the other time was I had ace king. Someone went all in, and some other guy went all in with a 6-2, and I lost to that. So just a rough time. And I remember it was that night though. I remember it was like 3 a.m. and I had lost like 400 plus, and I was standing outside the casino, and I was livid, bro. That was a rough night, and I was an hour and a half from where I was staying. Like I couldn't walk or bike or anything. The Uber was over $100 to get home, and I'm just standing there at like some intersection in LA, just in any type of area I probably shouldn't be in, safety wise. And I'm just like tweaking because like I'm pissed off that I lost all this money. I'm upset because I don't know how to get home. Basically, I'm gonna have to spend like $100 to get in the Uber, a whole nother buy-in to take the Uber back. And it just hit me like, what am I doing, man? What am I doing? And that was like a real night for me. That was just a crazy intense night to me. And I was like, dude, this is gonna have to stop. This gotta stop. And after that, I read a couple articles that had been sent to me a while ago on on gambling. I'd be glad to share them with anyone who listens. I think they were really helpful for me because they were pretty detailed and good with the scripture on what God's perspective on it would be. And I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I can't be a man of God growing in wisdom, growing in discipline, and trying to serve him and spend my time here. And so I was like, I gotta be done. And I think I played like twice over the last 3 months. I just had a moment where guys were playing online, and I was just like, I just had a moment. But other than that, I haven't really touched the game at all. I haven't even had the desire to. I haven't even really had any burning, like, I need to play this game. I just kind of life's moved on for me. And luckily I've been focusing on earning money in real ways. So all that to say, that's my experience. That was a year of time. And again, probably over 1,000 hours or more. I have no idea how much, but it was a lot of time spent, putting my money to chance. And so I feel like that testimony is important, but I feel like I can, more usefully respond to questions and comments about gambling than just like some random person who's vaguely Christian who, is like, oh, of course gambling's wrong. That's just a sin. Because that's how my mom was. And that's why it took me so long to come around. Because my mom, and she wasn't necessarily wrong, but that's all she would say. She'd be like, gambling, none of that stuff. That's wrong. Don't be doing that. That's not good. And there would never be like an explanation or like an answer to like specific questions or helping me with gray areas or helping me with my justification. None of that. Like, it was just like a lot of, I guess the only word for it is Christian ignorance, where like Christians have a conviction, but they don't know why they do. It's kind of like the same thing. A lot of Christians will be like that towards weed, where there are good reasons why a Christian should not smoke weed, and it's not wise. However, a lot of Christians just say, don't do it, it's wrong. And they have no idea actually why it wouldn't be wise to do so most of the time, or how to even justify that. So I think that's why it took me a while. I really needed to hear some useful reasoning. So that's all about me in this particular situation. And so now I'm going to respond to, as best I can, some of the things in chat. Okay. All right. I'm just going to go through and respond to them as we go. White Chocolate says, and this is all the way back in the questions channel, does God interfere with gambling like luck? Okay, this is a good place to start. So, and I think the simplest verse to answer this question, and I'm trying to find the reference specifically right now. I'm gonna have to be looking up these references as we go because I know the references, but I gotta remember the actual places. Okay, here we go. So the question is, in what way is God involved with gambling? And I think this is this question can be asked in many different types of ways, meaning like some might say to themselves, well, I wonder if what effect God has over luck. Is he in control of luck? Is there such thing as luck? Like, what is the deal with that? Some might say, does God affect gambling in a way where, like, I don't know if there's luck or not, but is God actively changing the results in order to help me or hurt me or whatever? And some might, just think in other ways, just wondering what power of God's sovereignty he might have over the seemingly random roll of the dice. And there's two verses that come to mind and I think are very just simple and clear on it. If you go to Proverbs 16, 33, it simply says, the lot is cast into the lap, but its every decision is from the Lord. That's as simple as it gets, meaning that the lot is cast, and the lot back then was used for, I guess it could be used for gambling, but it was also used for making decisions when there wasn't like in a most fair and quote unquote luck-based way as possible. And basically saying that even in the way, like you could substitute lot for dice if you want to make it meaningful to us now. So like the dice is cast, but every decision it makes is from the Lord. I mean, that's as simple as get. That means every single time the dice is cast, the Lord is in control of what it lands on. Now that might seem difficult to understand, but it's very commensurate with God's sovereignty, right? If God is sovereign over every event, right? If he's in control, if he is accomplishing a purpose, and he certainly is, then he is going to be the one who ultimately decides what happens to the dice. Now, God might know what happens to a dice and then and decide to just let the natural order take place and let that decision be, and then accomplish his decision from that. But that's still his control, right? If God knows that the dice is going to roll a 6, and that's what the natural physics of things would do, and he doesn't have to step in and weigh the dice or something, but that 6 files into his plan exactly how he wants it to, well, then there's no issue. Then he's still in control of it. He's still making sure things occur in the way he wants them to occur. He's still, the one sovereign over this quote unquote luck, which does not exist. But simply, I think one of the ways God uses what's called providence, which is him working out the natural order of events in a natural way, not a supernatural way, is by, using simply the natural order of science and physics and the way he created the world to let events kind of come together. And God is as much in control of that as he is if he were to do something supernatural. So that simply said, there's another verse has come to mind. But before that verse, I want to point out this too, and that is that back in the Old Testament, the priests would have what's called the Urim and the Thummim. I think it's the correct way to pronounce them. And actually, let me pull this up. Okay. Here we go. And this is important. This is, I think this will help in understanding. So if you go to Joshua, I believe it's 7. And we look at, I don't know why this is yet. Just let me see the whole chapter. Thank you. All right, this is just a passage in Joshua. In the morning, therefore, you shall be brought near by your tribes, and the tribe that the Lord takes by lot, right? Takes by lot, which means that how are they deciding which tribe the Lord would take? They would use lots. That's how the people were physically doing it. Shall come by near the clans, and that clan the Lord takes shall come near by households, and the household that the Lord takes shall come near man by man, and he who is taken with the devoted things shall be burned with fire, he and all that he has, because he has transgressed the covenant of the Lord, and because he has done an outrageous thing in Israel. So what's going on here? Basically, punishment is going to be doled out to someone who committed a sin against the Lord in Israel. And the way that they were going to figure out, in this particular case, who did it, was that, and the Lord had them do this, was they would cast lots. And so they cast lots to decide of the 12 clans, of the 12 tribes, which tribe, and then of the clans in the tribe, which clan, and then which household, and then which individual man, by way of what would seem to be luck. But at the end of the day, obviously the Lord was in control of who that was, because he had a specific person in mind. He knew who sinned against him, and he wanted to choose that particular person just to punish, of course. It was just the method by which he used it would seem to be luck. And so, and this would happen other times in using what was called the Urim and the Thummim, which would be on the breastplate of the high priest. Basically, it was like, I don't know if they were particularly dice, but they would cast those lots when they were trying to understand the will of God. And the Lord would have it fall a particular way so that people might know how to proceed, because what seems to be luck to us is not luck to him. So I would say that's my first response to what White Chocolate asked, does God interfere with gambling? Which, by the way, means any meaningful Christian who understands that all their provision comes from the Lord, every dollar they have and every food they eat is from the Lord, provided by him, to then go and put up their money to chance is absolutely foolish. Foolish. Because you know that you're only going to receive something if God gives it to you. And you're not going to receive it if God doesn't provide it for you. So how can someone who knows they'll have everything they need because of the hand of the Lord make any sense for them to go put all their money up to chance and what? Hope that that by random chance they'll make more money? I mean, the only way that would be a reasonable way to go about it is if indeed the Lord wanted us to make money in that way, but he certainly does not. And we'll get to that. All right. Maui says, I wish God gave me the big win. I have a gambling addiction, but I've never prayed to God for a big win. That's got to be heresy. Well, yeah, I would say that would just be not in line with his word, but we'll get to that. Crafting says we shouldn't pray to God for purely material things like that. Most should be spiritual. I mean, I guess I think what's better to say is, well, we should understand the God we serve. What does he want with our life? What does he want us to do with our time? Right? And what is the way in which he has prescribed that we would be provided for? And we'll talk about that. So here's to a different place. And before we get here, this is going to be on now the gray areas, right? And I think we'll get to that in a second regarding sports betting, regarding what I think is also gray area, which is, what if you go to a casino once a year and use some of your disposable income? Those can be tough, but I think a couple other words. If you go to Proverbs 13, I did not type that well. I did not type it right. Come on. There we go. Boom. I'm putting it up on the stream so people can see the verses as I go through them. And I remember when I was reading through Proverbs, this stuck with me, of course, because it was, relevant to me as someone who had gambled for a while. And it says, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it. Basically, what it's saying is, and this being the word of God and wisdom, if your method to gain wealth is quick and easy and is lazy, even if you do gain it, it's gonna fall away. You're gonna lose it. But if you gather wealth by the little method, which would mean consistent work over time, then you will actually increase your wealth. And I think that's good wisdom. There are so many stories of people who have won the lottery, and it's been $50,000 or more or even $1 million, who had a particular kind of dead end life or job, won the lottery, and 2 years later, this is true, like back in the same job, all the money's gone because they didn't know how to handle it. And it's not just about making money, it's about knowing how to handle it. And if you only gain money just through random chance, then once you have it, you're not going to know what to do with it. And 2 years later, you're going to be back to the same dead end job. And that's exactly what happens a lot of time. And so at least in the wisdom sense, it's not a consistent or reliable way to make money to gamble, especially if you're not if you're playing games that don't have any skill involved at all. At least like my justification for poker for a while was like, okay, at least some skills involved, so it's not going to be completely odds against me. But even if you make the money, I mean, you're not even in a position to handle it. And so you're not likely to make it. It's not going to be consistent. And even if you do, then you're probably going to lose it, even when you have it, because you won't be able to handle it. And this is what the Word of God says. So either the Word of God is false, or the one who gains hastily is going to lose their money. And it happens basically every time that way. Because either they're like, well, I won, I'm going to go back and gamble it more. Or they'll just spend it on other things, and then they don't know how to use it. So I'd say that's another point to be made. I want to point out another thing, and this is actually in the New Testament. And listen, I think that these ideas here are strong enough to discourage any strong Christian man from devoting their lives to, let's say, poker as a hobby, which means they're all the more sufficient to tell people to stop feeding money into slot machines. I mean, that's just absolute stupidity. I mean, logically, it's very stupid. You're not going to win. the odds are against you. The providences are against you because God doesn't want you to do it, and chance doesn't even want you to do it. So why are you doing it? If you go to 2 Thessalonians 3, I'm going to read this so you have some context. And this is under the subheading, Warning Against Idleness. Now we command you, brothers, in the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from any brother who is walking in idleness and not in accord with the tradition that you received from us. For you yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, because we were not idle when we were with you, nor do we eat anyone's bread without paying for it. But with toil and labor we worked night and day, that we might not be a burden of any of you. So what's that? So far, what that's saying is laziness is to be discouraged. And even in the sense, even when you're serving Christ with all your heart, it's still expected and good that you go out of your way to also make a living for yourself, right? Nor do we eat anyone else's bread without paying for it, right? We were not idle when we were with you, right? With toil and labor, we worked night and day so it wouldn't be a burden. So the call of a Christian, even under the duty of ministry, is to work, is to toil that they might earn and provide. Verse 9, it was not because we do not have that right, but to give you in ourselves an example to imitate, right? This is the example we imitate. For even when we were with you, we could give you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. For we hear that some among you walk in idleness, not busy at work, but busybodies. And what it's saying is that there were even issues in the church where people at this time in Thessalonica, where people were, in the name of, I guess, ministry, walking around not doing anything, being lazy, not actually contributing or doing work, or at least on the side doing work to earn a living and earn to provide for themselves. And Paul's saying, well, if you're not willing to work, you shouldn't eat. And that is a pretty direct discouragement to live a life trying to earn money or not earn money at all in any other way except by working. But that's the command. That's the command from Paul. All right. I think if you go to Proverbs here, there's another section here. Proverbs. And I think a lot of my learning on this has come from Proverbs. I recommend you read that. It's full of wisdom. And simply says, it's always very short-stated, but in all toil there is profit, but mere talk tends only to poverty. The crown of the wise is their wealth, but the folly of fools brings folly. I mean, and there's so many different other places in the book of Proverbs where toil, meaning hard work, are related to actual profit, actual wealth. Okay. And any other type of way, right? There's other, if you know the part of Proverbs that talks about the sluggard, in the way of the sluggard, the lazy one, the one that does not work, the one that goes for the easy gain, the one that puts the low effort in, that is the one who does not succeed. They do not build wealth for themselves. So the whole point, especially as a Christian, the whole point of gambling, I mean, for anyone, the whole point of gambling in their mind is that they make money, right? You want to make money. You want to have more money than you have. You want to have a lot more than you have, right? And especially for the Christian, they have to understand the Bible teaches that the only way you're actually going to make that money, that you're going to hold on and have real wealth, the only way that would happen is if you are one who works hard. Okay? So I just wanted to cover all those different points. I don't think there's anything else. I might say a few things about poker in a little bit, but let's continue here. So all that being said, I think anyone who understands how God's providence work and the commands in the Bible to work hard for our living, I mean, simply put, if you don't work, you don't eat, I think would be able to understand that it wouldn't be wise to spend our money this way. I'd also throw in there is that God expects us to be stewards of what he does give us. So it's not just, hey, don't try to gain this way. It's also be a steward of what you've been given. Okay? Actually take care for what God has provided for you. And if you take all that God's given you and you just waste it, you just say, well, maybe I'll roll a 6 and make 100 more. And then because it didn't roll a 6, you lose it all. Then, I mean, what kind of way is that to represent our Creator and what He's given us. How could you tell the Lord that you've been a good steward with what He's given? You couldn't. And so that's why, especially to me, even when I was playing poker, I would be like, okay, but I wouldn't play slots, right? I wouldn't do that, because really just putting it up to chance is just utterly sinful. It's just waste. It's just saying to the Lord, your provision doesn't mean anything to me. I don't feel responsible for it. I don't feel like I need to do anything with it. I don't feel like I have to steward it. I don't feel like I need to account for it. I mean, you do. But that's what you say to the Lord when you do that. So, okay, that's all my thoughts on that. Let's now address some of the rest of these comments. Space Cowboy, but I mean, what kind of gambling? When does a line get crossed betting on sports and slot machines versus betting on the stock market? So, remember, the reason the gambling is an issue, okay, is because you're taking money that, again, the Lord has provided to you by means of His grace or your hard work, or both. And instead of stewarding it, you're then putting it up to chance. You're saying to the Lord either that what He's given to you is not sufficient, or that you don't trust Him to provide, so you want to turn to a different source to get the provision that you think you need or want. And that source being, funnily enough, chance. And so that makes it wrong. That makes it just an ignorance of God, just a rebellion even against God, I'd say. So the question you have to ask when you're quote unquote gambling is, what are you taking money and spending it in that way? Okay, are you spending it in a way where you're putting money that was provided to you by God, which could be used for anything, and putting it up to chance and hoping to make more by chance? And I think when you have, obviously, a slot machine, a slot machine is the worst one. I mean, the slot machine, your odds to win are like 1 in 10,000 plus, right? I mean, they're literally built to not work and yield money except for once in a while. They're like set that way. They work once in a while, right? And they take all the money so they can make a ton of profit, and they give back some of it, basically to one lucky person. But most people aren't lucky. Actually, probably 10,000 and 10,001 are not lucky, right? So that's just stupid. I mean, that's stupid even on in the non-believer's perspective. Sports betting is a little different. Obviously, it's not really a skill-based thing. Some might try to argue it's skill-based. It's not. I mean, maybe it could become a little skill-based if you spend all your time studying, but even then, it's not. I mean, you don't know what's going to happen. You have no way of consistently ensuring that. Even if it happened to work out that way for you for a while, you can't consistently guarantee things. I mean, it's silly. You might ask the better question, well, what if I spend $20 on sports betting once every few months or something? Is that so bad? Then you get into areas where you have to exert some wisdom. Okay, well, we know that we shouldn't be wasting our provision on that, but is such a little amount and a little frequency a big deal, or is it actually considered sinful in that sense? And that might be a harder question, because you're not spurning all your provision if you are doing it at that frequency. But again, is that the wisest thing to do? I mean, even if you don't care about $5 of the dollars you have, you're still not stewarding those $5 well to the Lord. So, well, I wouldn't say the same thing to a person who bets $5 once a month to the person who spends $1,000 a day in a slot machine. I still think, as we try to become like Christ, we want our lives to look like His and obey His word as much as possible. And so we want to make decisions that are in line with that. And so even the $20 waste is still a waste. It just might not feel like a big deal. The stock market is a little different, because the stock market is a risk. It's not a gamble in the same way. A gamble is, I don't know, but I'm going to put it up to chance and hope. A risk is you have reason to believe that there will be yield. And of course, in some stocks, you actually have mostly certain reason to believe that there will be some yield. And it's more just about being patient. And so you're putting your money in because you have a good reason to believe it. I think that stock market playing can get a little bit rough when you start doing too intense day trading, or you're trying to make all your money off of things like that, because then it becomes such a game at that point that it can be hard to keep up and have any sort of reliance or confidence. And then of course, the more money you're putting in the stock market, if you're not diversifying into other types of places and saving, it can get more risky. But if you're taking a portion of your income and you're saying, well, these companies do well, and they do well because they do work, right? They sell a product, they do a thing, and they consistently do well. And by investing in them, in that company that does well by hard work, I am then going to receive a consistent return, and you have a good reason to believe that, and a high likeliness, then that is a more of a risk that has a basis. I mean, not that there's anything specifically about the stock market in the Bible, but there is a lot in the Bible about investing, about being wise with your investments, where you put your money. I mean, this is in Proverbs, but also in some of the parables Jesus told. I mean, of course, the safest investment, even though it is technically an investment, would be putting your money in the bank to gain interest. But the Lord even said to the wicked servant in Matthew 25, well, you should have at least put the money in the bank to gain interest, understanding that there is some type of investment that is valid and better than not doing it, right? And so not that you're limited to only the 1% of nonsense interest you get at the bank, but there are versions that are fine. And gambling and stock market trading are just vastly different things. Most people who are listening to this and thinking about this are not undergoing some sort of attempted justification of walking the line of becoming a poker hobbyist and trying to be like, well, it's mostly skill and blah blah blah, and it actually technically is an investment. That's not really the issue for most of you guys. And for that person, which was myself, there's a completely different set of responses. Most of you guys are tossing your money on the roulette table. That's not a likely investment. That's not a stock market gamble. Okay, stock market gambles you can study carefully, and you can make pretty good kind of decisions, right? Choices based on where the markets are going. And if the markets were to start going down, you don't lose it all at once, right? You can take it out. If you look at people who do like swing trading, a lot of what happens is they make some money sometimes because they made a good choice and the trends went up. But sometimes they put their money in something and then they watch how the market decreases a little bit. And they're like, whoa, wait a minute, that's not doing well. I was wrong about that investment. And you know what? They can take it out and they suffer a little loss, not all of it at once. And so, I mean, the odds, especially with good thinking, are generally in your favor in the stock market, and the losses are much more minimal than in gambling, where the odds are against you, or at best 50-50, and if you lose it all. You know how many times I've seen people in videos, or just in other situations, play blackjack and they're winning and they're winning and they're winning, and then they put it all, they bet it all, and then they lose one, and then it's all gone. Then it's all gone. I saw a video once. Some guy just had a lucky run and he made $5,000 from like 200. And then he was just feeling good and I guess was making content, and he bet it all again and then lost. And there goes 5,000. There you go. That doesn't happen with the stock market. So different things. All right. So that answers that. Maui says, I think it's fine if you don't let greed consume your rational thought, and it becomes a vice, and that's a sin. So any gambling, especially if it's, especially the more chance that's involved in the game, is greed already. It's already greed. It's stupid, right? That's why I say $1 in the slot machine is greed. It's it. Because you're basically saying to God, you're not sufficient for my provision. I'd rather do it this way, not your way. Stupid. All right. There's no way around that. Okay. I mean, what you're doing is, I want to do nothing. I want to take my money, even if it's a little bit. I want to give it to something and hope that it makes money for me. There's not even any thinking involved. It's not a weighing a risk and following trends and thinking. No, it's just chance, and it's against you. So
what about like games. Like it's just fun. Like oh, it's a little it like adds a little. It's not really about if I add money, get money or not. It's more like oh, the adrenaline rush from like oh this dollar could be five, but if it's not, then it's okay. It's not that I'm. You understand what I mean?
Yes, exactly. And this is the gray area that I'm talking about. That's where like I start to be like, okay, well, it's still a little bit challenging. What if you are doing it for fun and you're using an amount of money that is very disposable to you, and you're not doing it because you want to make the money, but you're doing it because you just want to have fun? What is the deal there? And I think that's where it gets a little dicey, where I can't necessarily say to you that's wrong. That's why poker was such a struggle for me, because poker I would either justify by skill or justify by fun, and justify saying I had enough money. I was I was using disposable money to play a game. So that I think that's where it gets tough. And like that, like for example, like if you and me go into Geometry Dash right now and wanted to race, and we both bet $20 on the game because we wanted to have fun and raise the stakes and we liked the feel of it, I can't tell you that's a sin. I don't really have a basis for that, I don't think. I mean, maybe I could say it's not super wise. Maybe I could say it's not a great witness as a Christian because someone else might be offended if they saw it. And those things are valid. And in some situations, you might, like, I might be like, yeah, I'm not going to even bet money on nonsense games with friends if I knew one of the guys was a gambling addict. But like, you know what I mean? But like, I can't say it's always a sin. I can't say that's always wrong. And that's where there has to be discretion used. I mean, but that's like, if you're going to ask questions like that, you have to make the distinctions between, you have to think in your head, what are the appropriate distinctions? Okay. When does this is fun and I don't care if I lose this money and well, okay, this may be fun, but I really shouldn't be putting, all this money I have on the line. And that's like, I think that's a matter of wisdom. I think that in the general sense, that number is going to be low. If you ever are betting money that now raises your stress level significantly because you know that you're going to feel it if you heard it, then you got to not do that, right? Because that's basically your brain's telling you this would not be good to lose, and basically then it becomes you're just hoping you win. I think that again, the other part of the gray area would be when you're putting money in to do a very, very obvious game of skill. Like, what if everybody put in $50 and played like, I don't know, I don't know what skill-based game, you could name a million skill-based game together, right? And it was literally just a skill-based game. It wasn't some luck-based thing. It wasn't like poker, which is a mix. It was just who's the best at shooting hoops or whatever. Then I think it's also a little tougher because, then it really is like, I guess you could say, well, you're betting on yourself, and that's maybe silly, but so maybe you have to watch your pride there. But then it becomes a gray area. Like like at the end of the day, is it really a big deal if a bunch of people bet $5 on a skill-based game? No, I wouldn't say so. I wouldn't make a big deal over that. But you have to. That's the wisdom. That's part of thinking and just trying to live like the Lord. But again, that gray area and that tough line, which is hard to find the exact place for it. That line is nowhere near the one where you're feeding $100 to a slot machine and then feeding another 100 and then still losing, right? I mean, just different categories. Maui says, I think it's fine if you don't let the greed consume your rational thought, then it becomes a vice and that's a sin. Again, I think that it is irrational from the first dollar to put your money in anything that's a coin flip or less. And then it is irrational and ungodly to put any substantial money in any area that wastes your time and more likely will waste your money than make from it. And we haven't even gotten to the poker issues because those are kind of trickier, and that's where it comes more about time and godliness, and we'll get to those at the end. But wasting your time is also another issue. Wasting your time is also I would say a big problem with gambling that people don't think about. So we'll get there. Space Pal Pie says that sounds reasonable. Tunic says, I think the biggest decider is whether a gamble is foolish or wise. Investment in the stock market is often very successful, making it wise to do, whereas betting on bad odds is foolish, like most casino games. I mean, I'd say generally that's pretty solid. Um, I think the better way to define gamble in most cases is to identify that gamble is more chance focused. I don't really like to use the word gamble when I talk about like the stock market. I guess you could, in theory, say the sentence, "Well, it's kind of a gamble," and yeah, you know, if you want, but just because the connotation of the word, I try to identify that the stock market is more of a investment. It is a educated choice that doesn't risk everything you have in one fell swoop. While gambling is it's an irrational choice numerically that does risk it all at once. So that's the difference. Most definitely don't think God considers my 3-leg parlay and the Chiefs tonight to be a sin. And I would tend to agree. I mean, if you put, but again, like let's do details. Let's say 3-leg parlay on a football game. If you have $10,000 saved and you put 5,000 down on that 3-leg parlay, which I know you didn't, but if you did, that would 100% be a sin because you're taking half of what God gave you and you're wasting it. You're saying, let's see if chance helps me. And you're being foolish because you're not even realizing that God is in control of that chance to begin with. That's a sin. That is an absolute, because you're disobeying the Lord. You're first of all, you're not considering work important. You're not being thankful to God and his provision, and you're not stewarding what he's given you properly. To waste the opportunity God gave you is to what? As it says in the parable of Matthew 25, you wicked servant. And of course, the talents in that parable, it's not really just talking about your use of money. It's talking about spiritual opportunity and all these different types of things. But it also, you could be talking about money in the sense where it's like, if God gives you something, if the master goes away and leaves you with something and you waste it, then you are wicked to waste it every time. And every parable that Jesus taught where the servants are given money or given a responsibility and the master goes away and it comes back and they didn't do what they were supposed to do, they're called wicked. And you could say, well, that's spiritual. Yeah, of course it's spiritual. But in order for the analogy to work, it also has to work in the simplest sense. So if the analogy is going to work that wasting your talents is evil to be a spiritual matter, it also has to work as a physical one, or the analogy wouldn't make any sense. And so to go waste all your money is just as wicked as to waste all your gifts like the Lord's given you outside of money. He's provided both of them. And so, but like, again, you know, if you spent like $20 or I don't know, whatever portion of your income would be not a big deal or disposable for you, then it's probably not a huge deal. The thing you'd have to watch then is wisdom. Well, is this wasting my time? Is this getting in the way of things? Am I doing this too often to where it's starting to affect things a little bit more seriously? Then you have to be a little bit more careful, because that lack of wisdom can lead to wickedness, because, not that, slippery slope is the best argument, but it's like, you keep doing something a bunch of times, it starts to control you. That's why Paul says, even outside of the things that are clearly unlawful, I don't let anything control my body, right? And when something controls us, it destroys us. So if I'm putting an irrational amount of money on it that's detrimental to myself and others, then that's absolutely a sin. Okay, yeah, so you get that. Okay, but what if you make an investment in something that has a promise, but just doesn't pan out? And that's why you have to be as wise as you can with investments. If the investment really had promise and you just did the best you could, and you tried and you made a good decision and it logically was good, and you're doing your best you can to honor the Lord with it, and it doesn't pan out, then it doesn't pan out, and that is what it is. And that one would not fall under this particular category of problem. Space Cow Pie, where's the line drawn between gambling and investing, or even just risk in general? I feel like I already answered this. I would say investing is something that the odds are in your favor, or you have good reason to believe they are based on your research and your care and your wisdom. And your losses aren't crippling, meaning that again, how the stock market works, your stock prices start to drop, you can pull out. You're not going from like $50 a share to zero in a day. Very, very unlikely for that. I mean, I know there's like probably certain situations where that's happened very, very rarely, and there was obviously crashes that really affect people, and that's just stuff that's too big and unlikely to break. You can't like plan around that much, and that's why you shouldn't put all your money in the stock market, only some of it. But like other than that, that is a completely different thing than like, well, let's see if this $100 is either going to become 0 or 200. That's a lot different. So gambling is when chance is the dominant factor, and especially if the odds are not in your favor or just 50-50, then that would be obvious gambling. That would be silly. Thoughts on leverage or like options in stocks, crypto? Do you think it's more like gambling? Again, I feel like I've answered that. It's about wisdom in that, and it's about like good stock market investment takes research, it takes thinking, and it takes wisdom in how much you put in. If I have $10,000 saved, I'm not going to throw 9,000 of it on one crypto coin. I'm going to diversify. That's why diversify is like a main initial basic term for anyone getting into investing. It's like, you have a bunch of money, don't put it all in one place, because things do lose.
Marvel, I have a question.
Yeah. What's up?
What about people who win millions?
Okay.
Like,
yeah, no, I saw it. And this is the Gabe question. And it's such a stupid question in my opinion.
Also, I don't know.
No, it's a good question. It's a good question. It's just Gabe asked me it too often. That's what annoys me. But there are a few people. Well, I already pointed out that a lot of people who do win, who are not able to handle the money, lose it all very quickly. But there are people who have made millions through investments and stock stuff and things like that, and those people wouldn't necessarily count in this question. If you're talking about the people who genuinely just went to the casino and got lucky, well, I mean, obviously the way luck works is that eventually it will hit. Okay, the point is that, well, the few things I'd say is, number one, you being not the lucky person yet doesn't know if that's going to be you or not, and has no good reason to believe it is. You also knowing, right, that the scripture would, and God would not condone that behavior, shouldn't even expect the Lord to bless that kind of behavior as a Christian. The one who wins is the one who wins. I mean, who cares? I mean, like, at the end of the day, I mean, what matters from your perspective would not be if someone else has won before, but the matters is, are you using your money wisely? Because I could say to myself, well, I mean, people have won millions before, so I'm just gonna go at it until I win, and then boom, all my savings are gone. Now what? Well, now I have no more money, so that was stupid. So I mean, I think we have to put things in perspective there. Obviously, I don't know personally of a strong Christian who has who plays the lottery often as one, but so show me that. But I mean, people are going to win, and those people, just as they were badly stewarding their money before, they continue to do it after, and most of them do not do well with the money that they won. Also, winning the lottery is not that amazing, and it is amazing in a sense, but it's like, the way it works out is normally, they don't just show up at your house and dump $1 million on your lawn. Usually you get that over the course of like 30 years, and you're getting taxed pretty heavily. So, I mean, even if you do manage to win, it doesn't really pour out in this like, well, you open your account the next day and there's a big one with 9 zeros either. So yeah. The question is not important at the end of the day. What about the people who win? The question is, what does God expect of you? All right. And if God expects you to steward the money he's given you wisely, it doesn't matter if everybody else in the world wins, because God's word is what's most important. Okay? I mean, that you know what that is? That's a similar question to the question that people ask, what about when the wicked prosper? What about when the evil ones do good and have wealth? What about them? And the answer is, so I should also be evil, or I can also be evil? No. Right? And so the primary point is, let's follow God and his word, and let's obey it. Okay, doesn't matter what happens to other people at the end of the day anyway. So those would be my answers to that question. Yeah, I think that covers most everything. I really don't see, and I would love to be brought the argument, and any argument that could be brought to me for why it would be okay to gamble at a consistent or a basis, even, or spending a lot of money. When we're talking basically most games at a casino, or sports betting, things like that. I've already given grace and allowed for the gray areas, like the very infrequent times where you're going to have fun and you're spending a very low amount of money and those things, and you're not really just trying to make money, or you're throwing $5 with your friends. All these different types of situations, I've already given grace to those. But in the general sense, like, there's no argument for a real gamble. I've already validated and explained the stock market and why it's different, so I feel like that should be pretty clear. The only thing I haven't done is wrapped up the poker side of things. Let me drink this water. And that would be simply to say that there's a little in between that we have to cover quickly, and that would be the Brendans of the world. And I'm Brendan, so sorry, you guys know me as Marble, but the Marble guys of the world, who are playing the poker and saying, wait a minute, but poker is a skill-based game, and I'm only spending a portion of my income, and I have a limit, right? And I'm spending the time and the effort studying the game so I can make the odds best in my favor, and it's over 50%, and I'm making wise decisions. So how is this not simply just an investment? And that's where I would say a few things. Number one, when it comes to poker, and this is another difference between poker and the poker specifically in the stock market, but gambling in general in the stock market, and that is, even if you have the consent of everybody playing, you are winning at someone else's loss. That is the whole deal. And it was hard for me to accept that. I think I had, the Lord had to prime me, and I had to see that and hear that a bunch of times. But I couldn't argue against it. One of the reasons I accepted is I don't know. I tried to argue against it. I couldn't. And because it really, at the end of the day, is true. I mean, even if I play poker with one person and they're like, man, I really want to play. I don't care about this $50. And I'm like, me neither. Let's play. And you're playing that you might earn their $50. If you win it, they lost it. And so spending especially when I was trying to make it a hobby, like a side hustle to earn money, and I'm making like a portion of my living off of someone else's loss, even if they're fine with it. I mean, basically I'm encouraging their foolishness, but also like I really am gaining dishonestly. And that does apply to other types of gambling, because basically the slot machine can give you $10,000 because everybody else has put money into it. So you all also are gaining at their loss. Also, you even, obviously because of all the other reasons we talked about, you're even more stupid. So I think that was something that helped me out of that kind of, because, I always try to find the loophole and the mid ground and the balance and try to push the line. And I think even where I was, that hits pretty hard. Also, it just, man, like, you only have so many hours in a day. And as you get older, each year you age, you're going to be busier and busier and busier. And if you're a follower of the Lord, he's going to have more and more for you to do and to manage and to steward. And I'm tell you what, if you wanted to be a professional poker player or a winning poker player, someone that was able to make consistent money playing the game, you would need to spend hours of your day studying and hours of your day playing and hours of your night playing. I know, because I've done it, and I played consistently. I probably put in 30 plus hours a week on poker for some weeks, the online, not online, whatever. Okay, and I was still not doing that great because I wasn't able to study the game enough. I needed to learn more. I needed to memorize more to even have more of a chance. And even then, people still lose and have bad runs, and they lose it all. Um, but sorry, like the amount of time it would take, it would be not just a 40-hour a week job, it would be like a 60-hour a week job, to be able to do that. And how are you going to do that when the Lord is requiring you to serve Him? I don't even know how to do it. One of the reasons it got phased out is because I was like, man, I just have too much to do. Can't do it. There's no way I could sustain this and do well at it, given the amount of time I have. So time and those wisdoms are important to consider. So yeah, that's how I respond to that middle ground. But yeah, so I think that covers everything I wanted to say. That was about an hour and 15. But hopefully that was of use. If there's any comments, questions, hit me with them now. Let's see. Oh, listening. Even if someone becomes prosperous in worldly ways through gambling, it doesn't make it less of a sin. We are taught that we can't take our worldly possessions with us to the next life. True. We should provide for ourselves and our families through toil and hard work. So obtaining wealth through gambling and other idolatrous means, there are many, causes more idolatry and even corruption. So it's not a blessing in any way. It only turns you further away from God. Yeah, I mean, going back to a couple things I say, you really are gaining at someone else's loss. You really are gaining dishonesty. The Bible says, work or do not eat. It means that. Jesus says, to not be anxious, because you seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness. What? All things will be added unto you. All these things. What are these things? The context of the passage was all the things we worry about: shelter, clothing, food, provision. And Jesus says, seek me first in what? All these things will be added to you. Well, Jesus seems to say then, if I seek the kingdom of God with all my heart and spend my time there, then He's going to provide for all my needs. So that means I don't need to gamble. That means I would be ignoring that promise. I would be saying that promise is not good enough for me. I don't honor it. I don't believe it, or I won't live by it if I go and put all my money to chance. I don't do it. Good thoughts, Litzling. Let's see what Gabe says. He says, is grinding stock market chill? I mean, yeah, again, I think the stock market is different. I'm actually going to be starting to getting in and giving a hand to swing trading for a while. Just seeing if it will fit into the time I have in my life, because I want to start, doing the better type of work with my money, and because I want to be as successful as possible, but I want to do it in the right way. So I'll see how that goes. It's different. I've already started doing some research. It's very different. But yeah, so that's all I got. So I was reading other stuff. That's all I got. If there's anything else, say so now. I think people are chill. Cool. All right. Well, that's all I got then. So, I'm just gonna wrap it up here. I'm gonna end the stream. I hope that was helpful to everybody.